All right. So this video is gonna be kind of a response to Flat's video. For those who haven't seen it yet, I'm gonna link it in the description of this video. But basically, Flats is a Overwatch player. I've been watching Flats since before he was famous, like console Flats. So usually when he speaks, I tend to listen because he comes from like a place of like understanding versus a place of like criticizing the game and bitching. So if you watch Flats' video, right, one of the common things that Flats was talking about in his video was how a lot of people are saying that the game needs to be balanced. A lot of content creators are like, yeah, we need to just stop making content. We need to stop releasing heroes and we need to balance the game, right? The problem with that, and Flats had a really good point about this, and I think a lot of people are gonna miss what he says in like construction of this, because a lot of people are gonna think that, oh well, he's just talking. Like he's not really trying to improve the game state. He's just lying about the game, right? He's just talking. He's just yapping. And I want to tell you something before I get into this whole thing about like who Flats is and is Flats telling the truth and is Flats truthful or whatever. Before I get into this whole like spill on who Flats is and his qualifications to talk about this, I want people to understand something that he was saying at a core level. And that was Flat's whole point was balancing is subjective, because you can't say that balancing, you can't ask any character in this game, you can't ask any player in this game about balancing, because every player in this game will have different opinions, right? Some people will think that a character is balanced, some people will think that a character isn't balanced, right? So usually devs balance off of win rate. The problem with balancing off data and win rate is you get skewed statistics, right? I'll give you a prime example. The tanks, Emma, Magneto, and Strange have less than a 40% win rate. And then video game balancing, for those who don't know what video game balancing is and how video games should be balanced, devs that balance games, I would say correctly, right, usually try to get whatever the win condition or whatever people are using to be at least as close to 50% as possible. Because if you get it to as close to 50% as possible, it means that, guess what? This character is showing up in the meta. They're strong in the meta, but they're not dominating the meta, and you have about a 50% chance to win the game. Average good devs try to make sure that characters stay around the 44 to 46% range, because as long as you stay in those ranges, the 44 to 46% range, and competitive shooters or competitive games in general, it means you're balanced, right? So what does that mean, right? It means that all these tier lists that people are posting about this character being strong and all this shit that people are posting about this hero being able to do that isn't, you shouldn't take that for law and Bible on what the community is. It's clickbait for engagement. That's what it is. It's clickbait for engagement. It's not the law, it's not Bible. Like, just because you see a character on that tier list doesn't mean that character is inherently strong. I'll give you a prime example. The character that I'm currently in the range warming up with, Bucky, if you look on any tier list, Bucky is considered low A to B, right? Low A to B. This character is, I will tell you, 1000% strong and oppressive as fuck. Why? Because he has 3 abilities that give you overshield, right? He has a passive ceaseless charge, which basically makes it so that I never have to reload my weapons as long as I'm spamming his abilities. He has a hook. He has an uppercut. And every ability that I use reloads my weapon and gives me an ultimate. Plus, he has a spammable one-shot ultimate that as long as I get kills on, I can continue to go again and again and again. But if you ask the majority of content creators, they'll tell you Bucky's B tier, right? He's not really good. He's B, like low B, low A. He's dead or whatever. But if you look up Bucky's win rate on any tracker website that tracks like win rate and hero win rate and hero pick rate, Bucky's win rate is about 46 to 47%. Which means he's in the meta and he's strong. He's in competitive gaming standards. He's a little bit overtuned, but he's strong, right? But your favorite streamer is telling you, "Oh, nah, he's bad." The same thing could be said about Squirrel Girl and Scarlet Witch. A lot of high-ranked streamers will put them on F tier and be like, they're terrible, like you shouldn't play them. But again, if you look them up, even in competitive play, if you look them up in ranked play and you look up their win-loss and their character win rate, they have high-ass win rates and highest win-loss, right? Just because people aren't playing them in the top elo doesn't mean the characters aren't strong. So back to the original point that I brought up, which is balancing and the percentage of characters. The reason why win rate is also misleading and pick rate is misleading because you have characters, you have swapping in this game, right? And one of the biggest issues in this game is swapping skews stats. For example, if you look up tanks like Emma Magneto and Strange, they all have around like a 42-43% win ratio. So if you were balancing a game, you would think that they were fucking weak because their win rate is so low. But their win rate is low because the people that are playing them aren't tank mains. 1, 2, they don't understand how to play the character. They just think the character's easy to play. So therefore, they dilute the actual statistics of the character because they push the character, they play the character and they lose because they don't know resource management. They don't know how to play the character. It's the exact same with comps in this game. A lot of people are like, oh, well, 2-2-2 wins the most, so everyone should play 2-2-2. That's not necessarily true. What happens is 2-2-2 is either the comp that people stay on the longest to win, right? And people swap less from, but it does not mean it is the strongest comp in the game because you could argue, and the argument is being made currently, that triple support is stronger than 2-2-2. The reason why triple support's win rate is less, and I'm living proof of this, if you go back and look at any of my VODs, is because when people start losing a game, that is when they swap to triple support. Right? They're not, people aren't running out of spawn and staying on triple support. People will lose games and then switch to triple support. It's the exact same with any triple comp. It's the same with triple DPS. It's the same with triple tank. People will either start on these comps or switch to these comps when they've already lost the game. So it skews the win rate and win percentage of the game. So as a Marvel dev, you can't balance on just that because, like I said, again, the shit is skewed, right? Because if you balance off pick and win rate, characters like Storm, characters like Magic, all these characters who have low pick rates, right, but high win rates would get nerfed. Because again, for the third time, like I was saying, win rates and pick rates don't show anything, right? It's not just pure data. So how do you balance the character, right? I think the sweet spot for this game, because it's such a fucking casual game, should be any character below a 30% win rate should be getting looked at and balanced. And all the other characters should be getting left alone. To be honest with you, I think that's what needs to happen. Because if you look, there's only one character in this game that has below a 30% win rate, and it's fucking Black Widow. Black Widow has less than a 30% win rate. She is the lowest win rate character in the game by a mile because usually, and that's really low for Rivals, because the average win rate for Rivals is like 42% plus. So the fact that Widow has a 37% win rate and she has not got buffed blows my mind, right? It blows my mind. Now let's actually talk about, if people want to talk about balancing, let's actually talk about what needs to be balanced in the game. One of the problems with this game is people want this game to be competitive, but they fail to realize that this game does not have a competitive player base. I'll give you a prime example of this game not having a competitive player base. In what competitive game do people throw as much as this, go AFK as much as this, or target ban their teammates' favorite characters because they think it's funny or they want to do it for clicks? None. None. But it happens in this game because the majority of the player base of this game is casual, right? Even the motherfuckers that are like, oh, you don't have an opinion because you're not in Celestial Grandmaster, they're casual too, because they do the same dumb shit up there. They do the exact same dumb shit. The fact that there is no growth and no change of toxicity from any of the levels in this game shows you that this game is not competitive, right? Because in games where I come from, like COD, Siege, Valorant, people that are in top 500 in those games, they're toxic. If you lose, they talk shit to you, but they're not out here actively handicapping each other and throwing games. Like that's not a that's not an issue that you have in competitive shooters. It's an issue that you have in toxic ass shooter or toxic ass games where people want to be competitive. That's one. Two, the hard pill to swallow is this game has too much healing in this game currently. Healing is a huge problem in this game. And it's a huge problem in this game because when it wasn't a problem, none of the supports wanted to play the role. And why did none of the supports want to play the role? Because they felt like they weren't valued. Why did they feel like they weren't valued? Because for the majority, outside of a couple of high elo support players, people in general lean towards playing. I was like in flow state. People in general lean towards playing that role incorrectly. They play that role incorrectly. They don't understand how to play the role. And if you put more constraints and make the role harder, a lot of people are going to walk away from that role. Why? Because if you play any other game like Overwatch or Smite, and I'm sorry that I'm comparing this game to Overwatch so much, but it's the only other hero shooter game besides Smite that you could compare this game to. But if you compare a support main in Overwatch versus a support main in this game, the lowest ranked support main in Overwatch will probably be better than a platinum support main in this game. Because in Overwatch, you have to, the healing isn't as strong, and a support knows that they can't heal bot. They have to do way more to influence the game state, because if you're only heal botting in Overwatch, your team is probably going to lose, right? Wanna know why? Because outside of pocketing a solo character, the healing in that game is not stronger than the damage, which means you get punished in that game for being out of position a lot. In this game, you do not get punished for being out of position. You don't, because you basically are infinitely immortal if you have supports on your team, certain supports on your team, right? I'll give you a prime example. Cloak and Dagger Bubble can literally allow you to live through anything. The way that Invis and other characters have all this self-pill patty caking, like the ability to be able to heal each other through any amount of damage and basically stay immortal, is also insane, because you can't do that shit in Overwatch. If you are getting dove as a support in Overwatch, you cannot fucking look at your other support and be like, yo, heal me, and out heal the damage you're getting taken by the DPS. No, you'll die. You'll die. You just don't heal enough. In this game, because damage and healing are equal to each other and one isn't higher than the other one, Sustain has power crept damage. And because Sustain has power crept damage in this game, bad habits like not walking into cover and pathing incorrectly, not knowing when to cycle your cooldowns as a support or use your ultimate as a support are just getting groomed, right? And strengthened, because you don't have to learn how to play the game. You can just sit in the back, infinitely heal your teammates, and then the only time you'll die is if your support isn't paying attention to you, or you're so grossly out of position or misplaying your cooldowns. That's the only time you'll die, right? Which means you're not really checking your skill. You're not. It's not really a skill check. It's just kind of like a, you literally are doing Murphy's Law. Like everything has went wrong, and there's nothing else that you can do to change the win condition. Because even if you have half a brain and your positioning is fucking terrible and your aim is terrible, you could just look at your other support, and if they patty cake with you, you won't die. You cannot get killed by a single DPS because they don't do enough damage. The other biggest issue in this game is ultimates. Ultimates in this game influence the game state more than neutral does, and that is a huge problem in this game. Even with the ultimate nerfs, ultimates in this game influence the game state more than they should. Right? That's why Gambit is in ban jail. Gambit's ultimate is so strong and so annoying and carries so bad that people don't even want to play him. And they've nerfed that shit 4 times, right? But if the core system of how you build your ultimate changed to like you actually had to provide value to your team, and it just didn't build over time from you just existing back there, then yeah, maybe Gambit could be played. That's also the reason why triple support is so oppressive. Triple support is not oppressive because of people know how to play the comp correctly all the time. It's suppressive because sustain in this game is really strong, and support ultimates in this game are generically the strongest support ultimate. This game is so based around support ultimates that people won't even walk up and fight unless they have a support ultimate, right? Because usually when a support ultimate goes out, people either try to match it or you try, as a DPS, you're trying to force it out. You're not really trying to force a kill, you're trying to force an ultimate out. And that shows you how unbalanced the game is, right? If your primary job as a DPS or a diver or a tank is to force a support ultimate out so that you can use your support ultimate, that shows you that sustain in this game isn't balanced. It's not. So how do you fix it, right? It has to be a point where sustain is lower than damage, where you're able to damage characters and punish people for bad decision making and bad positioning. But we had that. This game had that. And when it had that, all the fucking supports went on strike. Because they were like, oh, I'm so weak, I can't play the game. The game is so unbalanced, I can't play the game. So now we have this shit. We're back at square one. We're back at square one where we all fucking started with the main core of the game being healing is too strong. You literally survive too long. But if they nerf healing, then all the supports would quit the game and we would have another support strike. They would lose a majority of the player base of the community. Well, why don't they lower DPS damage? DPS damage needs to be lowered and they need to lose overhealth when they fight. Sure, let's do that. Let's take away overhealth and let's lower damage. If you take away damage and overhealth in this game from every single DPS in this game, then support would unquestionably be the strongest role in this game, and sustain would go unchecked. It would be worse than it is now, because nobody would even attempt to queue up as triple support or triple DPS or double DPS. At that point, people would queue up triple support, and all the DPS players would rotate towards Luna, Mantis, Ultron, and Adam, all the aim-intensive DPS supports, and then you would have a true DPS support and triple support comp, and you would just run the game. You would run lobbies, right? So that's what would happen if DPS got nerfed. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Fucking tanks, right? What is wrong with tanking in Marvel Rivals? Well, people don't want to tank in Marvel Rivals because they said it's boring. People say it's boring because they don't understand the concept of what tanking actually is. The majority of this community thinks that a tank should be this. You should play Magneto, you should play Strange, you should walk forward with your shield and just block damage, block damage, block damage, walk forward with your shield, block damage, force cooldown. That's what the majority of this team thinks tanking is. This game thinks tanking is, and that's not what tanking is. Tanking survives on two principles: taking space and controlling space, right? Tanking in Marvel Rivals is so horrible because tanking is split up into two categories. You have a main tank and you have an off tank. And because of the solo tanking phenomenon that is in Marvel Rivals, tanking is a horrible experience for Vanguard players because you are forced to play a tank that can take space or a tank that can hold space, right? A tank that can take space, i.e. Magneto or Emma, can't do anything with the space that they're taking if their teammates don't walk up and occupy the space. So you can play Mag all you want to and bubble as much as you want to and walk as forward as much as you want to, but essentially what your team is asking isn't for you to take space and maintain space. Your team is asking for you to walk up, force cooldowns, and allow them to charge their support ultimate off you. Or allow their DPSs to walk behind you and charge their DPS ultimate off you. That's what tanking is in this game, right? That's what tanking is in this game. And part of the reason that is what tanking is in this game is because the core of Marvel Rivals was designed around 2-2-2, right? It was designed around 2 tanks, 2 DPSs, and 2 supports. So with that being in mind, the devs are stuck in that 2-2-2 mindset that you need 2 tanks to help each other. So that's how tanks are designed. That's why off tanks usually don't have the ability to walk up and control space because they have nothing that they can use to walk up and control space. So your tanks like Rogue, Deadpool, Thor, Hulk, yes, they have the ability to get to the space, but they can't take space because they have nothing to protect them. right? They don't have a shield like Magneto. They don't have a shield like Strange. They don't have Diamond Form or a shield like Emma. So they can't walk. They don't have walls like Groot. So they can't walk up and block the other team from taking space. They can't. But they can hold space, which is why Penny is being played the way she's played. Penny on defense, on anything, domination or defense on convergence, is really good because Penny can lock down a space because Penny is a off tank, and the primary job of Penny is to hold space. And because you don't have to usually in those game modes, you don't have to establish the space. You could just walk into an angle and set up, right? If you get to the point fast enough on domination, you can set up. And then you basically can sit there and control the space because that's what she does the best. But when you're pushing the car or you don't get to the area first and you have to set up to take space, Penny is really bad at it. She kind of just explodes because she doesn't have the ability to take space. And she doesn't have the ability to take space because she is designed on the expectation that people are going to play a main tank and you are going to be a off tank. That's why tanking is miserable on this game, and that's why people don't want to play it, because at the core of it, people don't understand how to play tanks. Tanks generate the tempo of the game. That's what tanks do. In every other game but this game that has a tank mechanic, a frontline character mechanic, tanks generate the tempo of the game. Everybody is playing not off the DPSs. Everybody is not playing off the support. People usually are playing off the tanks because the tanks are generating advantage because they're either taking space, fighting for space, or holding space. Except for in this game, the character that's generating the advantage in this game is supports, because support ultimates carry and win you games, right? And because of that, DPS ultimates have to inversely be created in a way to counter support ults. And this brings me to my biggest complaint about this fucking community: Cyclops and Elsa Bloodstone. Cyclops and Elsa Bloodstone were necessary evils. They were necessary evils in the way that people aren't thinking of them. They are necessary evils because I truly believe that the characters were invented with the devs mindset that if people are going to play triple support, we're going to invent characters that are allowed to bypass triple support, right? And those characters were Elsa Bloodstone, Cyclops now, Phoenix, who was another one? Who was another character? Bucky. All these characters, Punisher, all these characters are invented with the mindset that the majority of DPS's ultimates are invented with the mindset that, hey, we want you to be able to kill through support ultimates because we know that healing is too strong in this game, and this is how we want you to combat healing with your DPS ultimates, right? The problem is, whenever a DPS ultimate gets released where it's strong, the majority of the community complains about it and it gets nerfed. And then because the community is complaining about it and it gets nerfed because they're like, oh my god, this DPS's ultimate is too strong, then you have what we're dealing with right now, which is triple support and people complaining about poke slot. Speaking of poke slot, so we can get back into this whole debate about poke slot. Speaking of poke slot, when this shit was dive, which it was last season, people were complaining. When anything besides poke is not the meta, people complain. And why do people complain? If you don't understand this, you should go follow this dude called Life of Rio. I'm going to link the video that he made about this in the comments below so you can understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, and he could probably articulate it better than me. But when you are a new player to a hero shooter, the easiest game state to understand is poke. Why? Because poke is you're testing out the other team. You're seeing what cooldowns you can force out, how much damage you can do, and then you generate advantage off picks. That's how poke works. Legitimately, that's how poke works. That's why people tend to play poke, because it's the easiest of the three, dive and brawl, to understand, right? Dive requires you funneling a team into a kill window and a kill box and executing together, which requires a lot more teamwork. coordination, and actual communication, which people don't do in this game. Brawl is like you set a line in the sand, you path differently to set up on an area on the map and set a line up in the sand and be like, hey, we're not going to walk past this area, but neither are you. And we're going to force you to engage us in our ultimate melee range. Our effective melee range is about 10 to 5 meters. And we're going to force all fights to be within this 10 to 5 meters. And we're not going to walk past this line. And you're not going to walk past this line. That's how Brawl works. Right? It's all about pathing and forcing fights where you have the advantage. And it's harder to understand that for the average player. So because the average player doesn't understand Brawl or Poke, or Brawl or Dive, people play Poke. Because Poke is the easiest to understand, right? Because if you have a Poke character, you don't really have to focus on anything but getting picked, right? Only thing on Poke you have to focus on is taking off angles and getting picks. So when people complain about Poke and they're like, well, Poke this, Poke that, Poke is boring, like we're in Poke slot meta, it's because it's the easiest one to understand. And when we were in Brawl and Dive meta, everybody was complaining about Brawl and Dive and they got nerfed. When we were in Brawl and Dive meta, people were like, oh, Black Cat's too strong, Daredevil's too strong, these characters are too strong. And people were getting skill checked and they did not know how to counter Dive and they did not know how to counter Brawl. And the reason why people were getting skill checked is because people don't understand the concept of peeling and don't understand that everybody in the game can peel. And I think that for the vast majority of it, supports don't understand how much survivability they have into Dive. Right? Because there's no way in Season 8, people were asking for tanks and other characters to dive or to peel for them when White Fox is in the game. When the majority of supports have a interpeeling mechanic, or when 99% of the time you can patty cake. Right? But I'm dying. Yes, you're dying because you have horrible positioning and you're not paying attention to your team. And the average support, when they get dove and dive, exasperates the dive because they back up instead of walking forward to their team to allow their team to turn around and help them. Instead, what usually happens instead of fighting back is they run like little scared supports into the woods. Or they go on a mission. Or your other support that's supposed to help you, that could peel for you, sees you get dove, and then they're like, well, I don't want that to happen to me, and they dip. They dip. Again, I have a video talking about this. I'm going to link that in the description. There's a whole Rio played a whole season of strategists, and he will explain to you. If you go to his stream and you go to his chat, he will explain to you basically how he was back there going through support hell because his duo support wasn't back there helping, right? That's why supports want a Strange. That's why supports act for Stranges and Groots and Mags and all these tanks so they can farm their ultimates, right? Now, let's address the other elephant in the room. Support ultimates. Support ultimates are way too strong, right? People talk about DPS ultimates, but all the support ultimates are way worse, right? If you look at the support ultimates outside of Jeff, because Jeff arguably and questionably has probably the weakest one. If you look out of the support ultimates, right? White Foxes is bad too. Amplify gives everyone overhealth and damage boost. Takes more space. Her ult takes space more effectively than a tank. Her ultimate gives everybody invulnerability. Her ultimate gives everyone a speed boost, health, and a damage boost. Invulnerability, trash, revives the whole team, heals and does damage, supercharges everyone's abilities, give them a damage buff, a speed buff, and charges your ultimate. Can copy any support ultimate or any ultimate in the game in its entirety. Becomes a walking invis ultimate in sword form, or a stationary Luna ultimate in gun form.
Double KO.
So outside of Jeff, and maybe White Fox, because White Fox's ultimate is also bad. Outside of Jeff's and White Fox, like, their ultimates are absolutely absurdly strong, right? So how do we fix that? Make supports more like this support right here. This support is probably the most balanced support in the game right now. That's why I love this support so much. She's probably the most balanced support in the game right now. And a lot of people are going to argue with me and say, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But I'm here to tell you that if you just shut the fuck up and listen, this support is probably the most balanced support in the game because this support, neutral, is really strong. She has the strongest neutral in the game, what you need for support. But her ultimate isn't necessarily a win condition, right? Because when you ultimate on White Fox, let me go ahead and get the alt bubble. When you ultimate on White Fox, right? Most of the time, you're either trying to heal the whole of your team, right? Or if you're a good White Fox, you can give them unstoppable so that they cannot be CC immune and you can enable another ult, right? But most of the time, she is healing, right? Now, when I ult with her, I usually try to kill motherfuckers. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I ult either when I know my team is gonna lose the team fight and I have to like mass heal and I know I'm not gonna be able to heal everybody, but a lot of the times I'll aggressively ult to create space because her ultimate does do a lot of damage. But I think when it comes to support, she is kind of one of the most balanced supports in the game because her ultimate and her kit is more, White Fox is more kit is more based around her neutral versus her ultimate. And I think that's what supports generally need to be balanced on, is their neutral needs to be stronger and their supports need to not be, their support ultimates need to not be as strong. Now, I'm not saying that a lot of their ultimates are overpowered because I'll give you a prime example of an ultimate that's really bad. If you do this on Cloak and Dagger, right, which usually happens all the time, if you ultimate in this form on Cloak and Dagger without going Cloak, you usually die. Why? Because you cannot fade when you come out of this, and if there's a good Magneto, you're getting slam dunked on. Or an average Magneto, you're getting slam dunked on. It's the exact same for this character.
We didn't ask to be heroes.
If you are a horrible Sue and you ult and you stay out in the open where people can see you and you die, this goes away. But the problem is good Sues know how to bubble dance and they stay in the back. They hover around the edge. They're like in and out. They're hovering around the edge of their ultimate. So like you're never gonna displace them for like 5 seconds. Their team has invulnerability and is able to create and take so much space. And it also sucks when you put into perspective that this character also has a shield that she can walk through and heal herself, a push and a pull, which are both anti-CC,
Your turn to disappear.
and a double jump that allows her to go invisible and recover health. So she has a strong neutral and a strong ultimate. What's the problem with Luna then? Luna?
All I ever wanted to do.
Oh, Luna.
A nice deep.
Oh, Luna. Luna's biggest issue right now in the game is just she just does a fuck ton of damage. Like, she does so much damage. She has a freeze. When you get kills, you pretty much recycle your cooldowns. If you self-snowflake yourself and you're just back here going crazy on this character, you'll always have your clap. If you give this to a very good DPS or a tank that's getting picked, you'll always have your ice arts, you'll always have your freeze, you'll always have your stun, right? And then you'll just build a state where you can constantly do this. Which is arguably fine because this ultimate is not as invulnerable and as uncounterable as the other ultimates, right? But yeah, like this is an issue. And then you have the triple support motherfuckers, Mantis and Ultron, who just enable just so much. These two characters like are the definition of why I think that this shit like we need to talk about support. because they are fundamentally broken in the game. Mantis and them are fundamentally broken in the game because outside of triple support, these characters cannot exist in the game because they don't heal enough. And granted, Mantis' healing is done by is more healing through killing the other team than actually healing. You mitigate damage by murdering the other team or giving your team buffs versus you healing your team like a traditional support would. But again, her ultimate is an insane win con, and it generates so much pressure. And it should never be like that. These are the ultimates that you kind of want tanks to have because tanks are supposed to take space, but usually people use support ultimates to take space. See where I'm going with this? This is how unbalanced the game actually is. So if you want to have a talk about balancing, these are the things that we need to be addressing. Not the fucking tier list and the other shit and characters pick win rates and this character strong and this character strong. Like, this is what we need to be addressing. But again, it's really hard to adjust this when the majority of the community is just playing for the vibes because they're casual players.